Welcome to The Scoop with Deuce. I'm your host, Philip Deuce, aka Deuce D Scoop. Check me out on Twitter and Instagram at Deuce D Scoop. And please, by all means, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. Turn on those notifications. You're going to get a lot of different types of content. But tonight, we're going with the Auburn Tigers once again. This is the AU Scoop. Now, this is a little less scoop and more so about opinion. So I want to know, what is your favorite for Auburn fans? What is your favorite, or what position group are you most excited about on the Auburn Tigers roster this year? Who do you go in and when you go to the barbershop and you go to the bar, they talk about position groups and they say, oh, well, my team has this running back group. My team has this D-line group. What position group are you most proud of? So in the comments, I want you to drop down. I want you to drop in the comments and say, who is your favorite position group? And I'm gonna go down periodically and break down each position group. But in my opinion, hands down, and I think a lot of you guys feel the same way. The receiver room in Auburn is absolutely loaded. I mean, when you talk about top end talent, depth, a multitude of talents, speed, size, ability, agility, catch radius, you name it, in that Auburn receiving room, you got it. And so today we're just going to go down the Auburn receiving depth chart, the roster, because the depth chart going in the spring we're not too sure about. We got some ideas based on winter workouts, but that'll come into clarity as the season progresses and as we get into spring camp. But right now, let's just talk about the total depth of the Auburn receiving room. You're returning Cam Coleman, who I think was overshadowed a bit by the success of Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams. But when you just talk about talent pound for pound, I think that he's one of the guys who can stand up in the room with those guys. He was a five-star for a reason. A lot of people had him ranked number 2 behind Jeremiah Smith and above Ryan Williams when it came to his ranking. And I think that even though he didn't have the numbers to compete with those guys, 8 touchdowns ain't nothing to sneeze at as a freshman. So I think first and foremost, top end, I think Cam Coleman, when it comes to returning players, he's somebody you got to be excited about. Now, you can play him in a multitude of positions. We saw Auburn move him around a little bit last year, primarily on the perimeter, somebody that you want in those 50-50 ball situations. But what he does have that a lot of people don't give him credit for is pretty good speed. He can get behind the defense when he just flats out, runs a 9 or runs a fly route or a deep post. He's a problem. I think last year the issue was getting the quarterback enough time to make a good throw sometimes. And I think as the quarterback play is elevated, you'll see his play elevated, and not just his, the entire wide receiver room. We can get into his stats. Now we all know 6'3", 200 pounds. You'll see that frame come out a little bit more from what I'm hearing. I haven't seen him, but what I'm hearing is, he's taken to the offseason program, continuing to work. He's already put on really good mass since his freshman year when he came in as the highly touted recruit. So now you're going to get to see the full cachet of what Cam Coleman has to offer with an offense that will be able to shoulder his talent. Last year he had. Now, mind you, I thought this was crazy. He didn't lead. Now, he's not the returning leading pass catcher. He's second to a name that we'll get to next. But he did have 37 catches last year for 598 yards, averaging 16 yards a catch and 8 touchdowns. Now, we did have a couple of drops last year that I think that he'll get that fixed. But when you talk about a do-it-all receiver, someone that you have to game plan for, when you look at the impact that a Ryan Williams had and the impact that a Jeremiah Smith had on their respective teams, he's somebody that you have to make sure that the safety is over the top. You have to make sure that you have someone. If you're playing cover 3, you want to shade to his side a little bit. Even if you're playing in that deep third, you may want to check him off the line. Quarters, you definitely want to probably go press bail. You want to try to throw him off. And when you have a guy that dictates what your defense does, that's worth his weight in gold when it comes to being that next level offense that Hugh Freeze wants. I think that he did some good things when it came to blocking last year, which I think is going to be really important. I know Coach Freeze, when you go back and you look at his traditional wide receivers that he's had, even at Liberty, he required them to block on the perimeter. When you're running that zone gap scheme and you want to get outside stretch zone, you definitely have to have that blocking on the perimeter. So I think his long arms definitely helps you out there. So when you talk about a guy like Cam Coleman, he's the guy that I'm probably most excited about, just because of his immense potential and what you can do with him from a size factor and his ability to run routes from anywhere on the field. So 1000% Cam Coleman is the guy. Now we're talking about returning guys. Now, a guy that actually is the leading receiver and who Hugh Freeze talked raved about, even said we got to get him different packages. We got to find a way to get him on the field, is Malcolm Simmons. Malcolm Simmons is regarded by some as the best overall athlete on the team. Some people, there were even whispers that, in a pinch, he could go help you out in the safety room. He's that type of athlete. Malcolm Simmons goes 6 feet, 180 pounds, probably about 185 by now, out of Benjamin Russell in the Gump, Montgomery, Alabama. He had 40 catches last year for 451 yards, 11 yards per, 3 touchdowns. He rushed the ball 4 times last year. Did have a fumble, didn't lose the fumble. But when you talk about explosion, if you want to balance out that AJ Green type guy that you have in Cam Coleman, who can beat you a multitude of ways, having that quick twitch guy that you don't have to sit around and wait till he gets downfield. Not to say it takes a long time, but you can really get him the ball in space. You can find creative ways to get him the ball. Jet motion touch passes, things of that nature. Malcolm Simmons is probably the most twitchy athlete at his size on that team right now. The next guy, the guy, we're talking about returning guys now. When we get to the transfers, the only person I think that rivals him on that team is Eric Singleton, who's phenomenal. But Malcolm Simmons is someone that you think about him in the slot. Let's just talk about what the profile of traditional slot corners or safeties who drop down in the box. If you're an 11 personnel with a tight end on the field and Malcolm Simmons is your first guy in the slot, that's got to be frightening for opposing defenses. When you think about a guy who can beat you over the top because he has 4.4 speed, legit 4.4 speed, a guy that can get the ball in space, who has some shiftiness to him, that he can dance with you in the phone booth and get out of there. And he's literally the type of athlete that has that coil in his hips that when he springs, he can run you over. So having that type of weapon, I liken him at 2. And I know this isn't a apples to apples comparison, but he's your Percy Harvin. He's the Swiss utility knife. He's the guy that you can put give him the ball at the backfield. Would even like to see him in some wildcat. Like that's the type of athlete that Malcolm Simmons is. So you already have a guy like Cam Coleman in his wide receiver room. And now you got a sophomore young guy like Malcolm Simmons who can play right next to Cam in the slot, or he can play the perimeter, matchup nightmare. And what he does, more importantly than anything, he doesn't allow you to get a key on what the offense is doing based on his position, because he can run any route in the route tree from wherever he is on the field, and he can run it like no other on that team for sure, just because of his sheer explosion. So shout out to Malcolm Simmons. Definitely excited about him. And we talk about guys who unsung heroes or guys that we didn't really talk about a ton last year. But someone that I think that Auburn really wants to get in the mix next year, that they tried a little bit last year that may not have been ready, is going to be Bryce Cain. Bryce Cain only had 2 catches last year for 33 yards, average 16 and a half. But someone that we saw in the slot that could be like that Ryan Davis type guy. For those that remember Ryan Davis, ton of catches, give him the ball in space, he'll figure it out. Well, that's what I see out of Bryce Cain. I don't think he starts this year, but I think he's one of those rotational guys when you talk about returning players that you're also excited about. I think he had a good grasp of the playbook early on from what I'm hearing, Bear Studios, and someone that you just got to get him in space. And as you start to focus on those perimeter guys and you talk about being able to send waves at people, he's one of those guys that like once you get beat up by a guy like Malcolm Simmons in the slot, then you just replace him with the Bryce Kane, and you're like, oh, hold up, I thought that guy was shifty. Well, this guy makes that guy looks like a stick in the mud. Like Bryce Kane is so shifty, and when you just talk about pieces and depth, there's a lot of teams in the SEC that he could go start for in the slot. Teams that go four wide, it would be hard to keep a guy like Bryce Kane off the field. So shout out to Bryce Kane. That's another guy I'm excited about. Now, the last member of the Freeze Four that a lot of people are wondering about his development is Perry Thompson. When you talk about a freak athlete, 6'3", 225 pounds, had 5 catches last year, 126 yards, 25 yards a catch, 1 touchdown last year. A lot of people thought that he was just going to be the bookend, the other side of Cam Coleman, but there was some development needed there. More of a raw athlete, someone who you want to see him take that next step, not only on the field, but also mentally when it comes to preparation. Not to say that he had bad preparation, but he's someone that I believe that people in the know feel like can afford to take another step just so everything matches up to his athletic build. A lot of the concepts that he had to learn year one, he really wasn't in that type of offense at Foley where he had to learn as much as he did. So it can be a lot for someone who so much is expected from. But he's a developmental guy who's like one of those balls of clay that's like very, very, very pretty to work with. And you want someone like that you can mold into the system. With so many receivers here, you'll see him be able to learn from a multitude of receivers. And this is one of those guys that's going to flash this year, that is going to be set up for a huge junior year, especially if guys in front of him like Eric Singleton and Horatio Fields do what they need to do. He'll be able to learn. So this is your guy of the future. I'm still betting on. Now, I think he's going to help you this year, but I think Perry Thompson this year is where he really announces himself. I can see him in that 25 to 30 catch range, maybe 400 to 500 yards, 5-6 touchdowns, and it's just going to whet your appetite for what he can do the next year. And he's another guy that I think that based on necessity, he could start at multiple other schools. And I'm glad he stayed. He could have easily garnered interest on the transfer portal market. He stayed. Auburn did a good job of recruiting him back. And I think that he's someone that's going to help you going forward. So Perry Thompson to somebody else. Now that's the Freeze 4. That's enough, right? Not done. Not done. Let's talk about a transfer. The guy that everybody's talking about, and that is Mr. Eric Singleton, the speedster, one of the fastest players in the country. Legit 10.2 speed. He's been recorded at a 10.1 before, like 10.18, 10.19. We're talking about real deal speed. Production. Last year at Georgia Tech, 56 catches, 754 yards, 14 yards a catch, only 3 touchdowns, but they used him in a multitude of ways. What I'm hearing from Auburn, and you've probably already heard it in some of the videos if you've been watching. If you haven't, go check the AU Scoop playlist. You can see what I've been hearing about in winter workouts. But Eric Singleton is someone who everybody's excited about. Not just offensively, but the defense is also excited about being able to go up against a guy with world-class speed who can control it. We've seen time after time where you have guys who have track speed that aren't able to translate that into being really good football players. But he's a guy, and I talked about Percy Harvin previously, but slim Percy Harvin down, someone who has that controlled chaos with their speed. That's who Eric Singleton is. I wouldn't be surprised if you see him the same way. Like you've got 2 now. 2 really explosive athletes in Malcolm Simmons and Eric Singleton. Over 23 miles an hour on the catapult, and he was joking with some of the players saying I was only going 85%. He thinks he can hit 24 miles an hour, which is moving. Eric Singleton is the guy this year who's probably going to stir the pot. When you see him, he's going to be the one that if you're already focused on speed, first of all, you always got to keep somebody back for speed. So you're already focused on Cam Coleman. You're already focused on Malcolm Simmons. Then you look up and you've got this burner who may be the fastest player in the conference. I mean, I'm just not sure there are other guys at like there may be people as fast, but I think you'd be hard pressed to find someone faster in the conference than him, especially at receiver. I'm talking to guys on the defense, and they're saying like, "Nah, bro, like he's really." We've seen 4.3. He's 4.2. Everybody thinks that he's a 4.2. That's seen him, and when he really turns it loose, he hasn't ran a 40 at Auburn yet, but definitely in the sprints, they've been clocking him at 23 repeatedly, and he hasn't really. And he's saying that he hasn't really cut it loose yet. So Eric Singleton is a guy that when you look at the cachet of receiver that you already have, I named 4 guys that could be your starting rotation. And then you just come back with a guy like Eric Singleton. I mean, there are a depth of riches in the Auburn receiver room. Another guy we're going to talk about with previous production, another transfer, who I think will start, is Horatio Fields. 6'3", 210, from Douglasville, Georgia. Good friends already with Eric Singleton. Another guy, played a lot at Wake Forest. Actually played with Eric Singleton's best friend, Deuce Alexander, who's the son of Route King, who just transferred to Ole Miss. They all trained together, very familiar with each other. But when you talk about had his breakout season last year at Wake Forest, 39 catches, 463 yards, 12 yards a catch, 4 touchdowns. Another guy who can go up and get it. Now, just imagine this. Cam Coleman, 6'3" on one side. Goal line package. Let's say goal line. Let's go Cam Coleman at the X. Let's go Eric Singleton inside. Let's go Malcolm Simmons. We're going 4 wides. Malcolm Simmons at the other slot. Let's go another 6'3". So we're going 6'3", monster. Let's go AJ Green, 6'3", monster. Far left, Cam Coleman. Eric Singleton next to Cam Coleman or Malcolm Simmons. Then either one of those guys again, one burner, one world-class speed guy, and one electric athlete, and then a 6'3" possession type, do it all, catch it, Drake London-esque type guy on the other side. This is downright frightening. This is the best wide receiver room Auburn's ever had. Hands down. I can't think from 1 through 6 of a better receiving room in the history of Auburn University. I mean, this is downright like disgusting. But Horatio Fields is a guy who got a lot of opportunities in that walking RPO system that Wake Forest runs. And when he went one-on-one, it was pretty much a 50-50 ball. It was more like a 70-30 ball for him. But also, he was able to beat the double team. He can 1,000% go up and get it. Pretty good basketball player as well. So Horatio Fields, when you go 1 through 6 in Auburn, you have to be excited about this wide receiver room. The freshman that I'm most excited about is someone who I've been ranting and raving about. If you watch me on Locked On Auburn with Zach Blackerby, shout out to Blackerby. If you saw me when I was still with all 3, I was always talking about Sam Turner. Sam Turner in winter workouts is someone who's been turning heads. Everyone's excited about him. They feel as if he's going to force his way on the field year one, not just with his talent, but his work ethic. He's a guy that doesn't want to leave the building. He's been anytime that there's a football being thrown, you can find Sam Turner. Damari Austin is doing workouts. He's in, there was an Instagram clip. Damari Austin posted it, and Damari Austin is working out in the indoor by himself. And then there's a guy that walks by, and all you hear is Damari say, "I should have known you was going to be in here." Who was it? Sam Turner. Like, I got to get some work too. What you doing? He's trying to go work out with Damari Austin just because he found somebody else working out. He's going to go do footwork drills, not even catching the ball. He's going to do footwork drills because anytime there's been an opportunity for him to get better, Sam Turner has been there, whether it be the yoga sessions, whether it be extra workouts. He's been there. So I think that just that mentality alone, plus his physical prowess, he's another 6'2" receiver. Catch radius off the chain. Someone who at Southwestern Cab early on may have been underutilized. And what he did and what he learned in his game was when they went cover three and when they went quarters, he learned how to go get open in pockets. And I think that's an underrated skill for young receivers is that how to understand zones. How do I know when to sit? How do I know where to sit? How do I break my route off and make my quarterback comfortable? That's what's going to get Sam Turner on the field in year one. And he's got sticky glue on his hands. Like he's a guy, he's going to catch it. Kind of reminds me of a Keandre Lambert Smith, someone that when you need a clutch first down, Sam Turner is your guy. So I went 7 receivers. There are more guys. I mean, that ain't even everybody. You still got Derek Smith, another freaky athlete, and his brother 6'6", Eric Smith. Like, I mean, this Auburn, I'm putting 1 through 9 against anybody in the country. And if you're an Auburn fan, you have to 1,000% be excited about this receiver room. That's my favorite receiver room on that. I mean, excuse me, that's my favorite position group on the roster. Drop your favorite, and we'll go down and we'll break your whoever has the most comments for the next favorite receiver group. I mean, excuse me, position group. We'll break those we'll break those guys down on the next video. All right, that's my time. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. Dukes, D Scoop, I am out.